Now, the quote I'm going to share with you is from like 14 or 400 years ago. Okay. And first we'll share the quote. It must be remembered that there is nothing more difficult to plan, more doubtful of success, nor more dangerous to manage than the creation of a new system. For the initiator, or the person coming up with the idea, has the enmity of all who would profit by the preservation of the old institutions. Okay, everyone who wants to keep doing it the way we were used to doing it. And merely lukewarm defenders and those who would gain by the new ones. So at best, people are only going to be lukewarm defenders of the change that somebody wants to make. And that quote was from Machiavelli. Oh, sorry, not 400 years ago, 500 years ago. Okay? And so this is as true today as it was 500 years ago. All right? And regardless of what you think about Machiavelli, might makes right, whatever. You got to understand, if you're coming up with something new and you want to do a transformation, if you want to do a change to the organization, everyone who would profit by keeping it the old way, they're going to go out of their way to make sure they keep the old way. And for those who would be willing to do the change, at best they're going to be lukewarm. I mean, that just sums it up so perfectly that every time I brought this quote back, I probably haven't used it now in almost 20 years, but I pulled it out here the other day, and I actually used it last fall with one of the teams that I was working with, because the more that you've been around and the more assignments and clients that you've seen, even though it's different, the more it's alike than different. An organization is like a tree full of monkeys, all on different limbs at different levels, some climbing up, some climbing down, others simply falling off. And I'm pretty certain I see one of my friends there, the second one in on the left. I'm pretty sure I worked with that guy here sometime during the last 25 years. Now, the monkeys on top look down and see a tree full of smiling faces. The monkeys on the bottom look up and see nothing but, that's right, politics. And that leads to friction, confusion, underperformance, and in the worst cases, gridlock. So what I'm about to share with you is the basis for how you would do a stakeholder analysis. It comes from how to run a successful political campaign, or even a successful marketing campaign for that matter. And the first thing is to understand your stakeholders. And you need to understand that there's more than just power and interests at play here. We'll also look at a second set of analysis that looks at power and effort. Because while somebody might be interested in what you're doing, they might not put any effort into it, either to help you or to hinder you. So we'll look at that separately. For power, we're looking at does the individual have a high level of power in the organization, or do they have a low level of power? And then for what you're trying to do, whether it's a project, program, product, whatever, are the people not interested, or are they highly interested in what you're doing? So in this example, you can see that we didn't put real names here in order to protect protect the the innocent. What you'll see here is that we have a bunch of people, we've done the stakeholder analysis, and we mark the post-it notes with either a plus, a minus, or a 0. The pluses are the people that are for you. The minuses are the people that are either against your project or program that you're working on, or they're actually against you. We could even split this out into an additional area. You know, are they for or against the project, or are they for or against you? Because they might like the project, but if they don't like you, they may go out of their way to, as we would say in Swedish, put a stick in the wheel of your bike. And everybody knows that if you throw a stick in the front wheel of somebody's bike, they're going to do a header over the handlebars in light speed. So there's many ways that you can apply this, but for right now, we'll just keep it at the stakeholder level and assume that the interest is towards your product, service, or result that you're trying to deliver. And so you need to map the stakeholders. And we have a saying, don't convert the heretics. Now, I don't mind working with a skeptic. I love a good challenge, because skeptics don't necessarily mean that they're against you. But the heretics are the ones that are adamantly opposed to what you're doing, what you're trying to deliver. And so in political campaigns and in marketing campaigns, you're trying to create critical mass. And you do that not by converting the heretics, all of the minuses. You do that by converting the people who are neutrals or zeros. The pluses you already have with you. And if you think back to the Machiavelli quote, at best you're going to have people who are neutral. So Machiavelli would have put zeros everywhere for those that are for you. And he would have had a lot more people up there against you. So his ratio of for and against would have been very heavily weighted towards those who are against. But I think you get the idea. Most people don't do this these days, but political campaigns have been doing this for decades. They're not going to spend a lot of time trying to flip a voter who's already made up their mind to support the other candidate. They're a minus, just ignore them. But if somebody's undecided, which is a zero or a neutral, you go after them. They're the ones that you need. And if you can flip them, then you can gain the critical mass to win the campaign. And so this is straightforward campaign management 101 on how to get the critical mass that you need to deliver successfully your project, product, service, or result. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there's a second dimension to this. The first two slides on stakeholder analysis were regarding interest. The next two slides are on effort. Just because they're interested doesn't mean they're actually going to do something about it. And so keep that in mind, that if you've got people who are against you, but they're not going to put out any effort to try to derail what you're doing, then you can just as well ignore them for the time being and work with all of the team members that are either neutral or for you in order to keep everything moving forward. So that can end up looking something like this, where you have a bunch of either high power or low power people who aren't putting any or almost no effort into opposing what you're trying to get done. Hopefully everybody who is on the plus side or even the zero side are going to put in the effort needed for you to win the day. And this also goes back to, if you've got team members that are either neutral or against you, you have to find a way to either neutralize them or get them off the bus. Remember, the flow formula in the flow friction analysis tool that we shared earlier is all about identifying, is the person the right person? And so you can do a stakeholder analysis like this for your team members, and then you can do it for the wider stakeholders and even further up the food chain, depending on your situation. The way that we mitigate and manage politics is using vision, culture, and cascading vision, obviously, is one of the key tools for mitigating politics. You go back to the vision. If the vision is correct, if the vision is linked, the opponents are going to have a hard time disagreeing. And you have to nail them down and document it and say, do you agree that this is the vision? Yes or no? If not, then I need to escalate this to your boss. And then their boss can work with them and try to find out, hey, why aren't you in alignment with what this team is trying to do? And so we would also use the 4D model and the 4R model, depending on if it's an individual that we need to work with, or a 4D model if it's the whole team that we have to work with. Sometimes you're dependent on other teams, and so if there's politics arising between the teams, you better be ready to use the different models that we have. And one of the things that we've used successfully in the past, in order to communicate the vision 10 times more than you think you need to, is to use the internal roadshow. We call it a dog and pony show, whatever. But we would actually do a tour in order to start aligning people, communicating to them, telling what this change is all about or what this new software is all about, and starting to build the enthusiasm and momentum for people to come with on the journey to the change that you want to achieve. Most of the times these days, companies just don't have apparently the resources. They always have time. It's always like, they never have time to do it right the first time around. But there's always time and budget to do it right a second time around. And I've seen that over and over again in companies. So it's a very odd behavior. If you want to get the most value out of your investment, do it right up front. I don't understand why people would want to, let it fail and then, try again. That, to me, that just seems way outside the realm of sound reason. So when we look at some of the ideas from the last slide, and then we start to look at the 4 areas of transformation that you need to look at when dealing with politics. First, you have to begin with the individuals and understand the intrinsic motivators that are really motivating them. So individual excellence, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Habits and time and attention aligned with a clear personal vision. So the individual's vision is key. If a person's not in alignment with their team, with their product, with their organization, you're going to have politics, okay? Or at minimum, a dysfunctional team member who's going to underperform, create friction, and yeah, probably fiction too, and create confusion, and could ultimately lead to gridlock. I've seen single individuals bring entire teams to a screeching halt. It's not fun to watch. For the teams, they need clear vision and goals with immediate feedback, and the team's skills need to be matched to the challenge that they've been given to deliver, whether it's a product, service, or result. And if there's a mismatch there, then that's going to violate the individual visions, could violate your product vision, and organizationally, and that's going to stall your plans from being delivered. In the product program process area, you need a clear vision, a clear minimum viable product, short cycle time to value, and an embedded customer in best case. That vision needs to be represented, and if the customer is not embedded in your product development, you have a high risk for politics erupting later, and then people will get into the blame game, and the first reaction of the executives will be, who can I kick? And that's not the reaction that you want. For the organization, you need to have a clear vision, clear definitions, and distilled agreements that are crystal clear. You need a cogent plan that you can deliver and then iteratively drive to success through the lens of vision, continually checking back that everything that's happening in the other three areas is in alignment with the overall vision of the organization. That's it on the politics section. There's a whole lot more. But politics and navigating that in an organization boils down to making sure that you have agreements across the board with and in whatever you're going to do to deliver your product, service, or result that's either going to make the company money, save the company costs, mitigate or get rid of risks, or helps the company do the right thing.